Hey guys and gals, so today I'm going to finish reading chapter 5 of the Three Golden Hairs, and I wanted to kind of make this kind of like a little bit of more like not just plain stuff, so I kind of like drew it in funny styles and cool styles, so yeah. So I'm going to read it to you guys and so far the story has been disgusting. I hate blood, and so like the parts where the dad of Hansel and Gretel cut off their heads, and where Gretel cut off her finger, and the guy put his hand down a girl's throat. Yuck. That just does not make me feel good at all. Yeah. So if any of you people that are hearing this right now, if you don't like blood or something, or like if it makes you feel gross, I recommend not reading A Tale Dark and Grim, because there's a lot of blood and guts and stuff. I don't even know how this is a children's book, but just I recommend this book to the people that don't like blood and stuff like that they feel so disgusting that they're gonna vomit. Just don't read this book like at all. So just a heads up. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notifications button. And I hope you enjoy the video. Hansel stood before the door. It was black like the gates of hell, but it was quaint, too, with a knocker that looked like the bronzed head of a kitten. Hansel looked at the knocker more closely. The whiskers were real. It was the bronzed head of a kitten. Avoiding the knocker, Hansel rapped very quickly on the door. No one answered. Cautiously, he leaned his head against it and listened. Screams, terrible screams, much worse than he of those sinners in pits of fire, echoed from inside. Hansel's blood shivered in his veins. Do it, he told himself. Do it now. He put his hand on the doorknob and turned it. Hansel found himself in a living room, sort of like a normal living room. It had a couch before a fire, a wing-back armchair, side tables, candles to read by, and a thick rug. But it stank of sweat and body odor and sulfur all mixed together. It stank so much that Hansel nearly gagged and was forced to hold his nose and cover his mouth. He looked more closely at the windback chair. It wasn't leather. It was human skin. Hansel could see teeth sticking out from one of the seams. He clamped his hand over his mouth more tightly to prevent him from throwing up. The screams were coming from the adjoining room. Carefully, Hansel crept up to the edge of the couch. It was made of hair, human hair. He tried not to think about it. Hidden behind the couch, he could see into the next room. It was the kitchen. In it, he saw an old devil woman with a pot and pan in each hand, cooking and singing, not screaming. That noise was singing. Just then, Hansel heard the creaking sound of footsteps on the stairs that led up to the front door. He looked around frantically for a place to hide. His eyes fell on a closet. He ran in it and slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. Just then, he heard the devil's voice. "Grandmother, I'm home!" The screaming, singing in the kitchen stopped. "Dinner's ready, my dear." And now Hansel could hear the sound of the table being set. The devil helped set the table, for even the devil helps his grandmother set the table. He stopped and sniffed the air. "Do I smell human flesh?" he asked. Hansel caught his breath. "Of course, silly," his grandmother said. "There's a little boy named Hansel waiting for you in the closet in the living room." "No, she didn't say that. I was just teasing you." "Of course, silly," his grandmother actually said. "What do you think we're having for dinner?" And they sat down and ate. Hansel sat in the dark of the closet, surrounded by extra blankets and pillows. He refused to look at what they were made of, and waited. The devil ate the supper that his grandmother had made for him, the fingers of sinners, spiced with their guilty tears, and then he yawned loudly. "Tired from all your wicked trickery?" his grandmother said indolently. "Come and lie down. You can put your head in my lap, and I'll stroke your beautiful golden hair." The devil removed his long traveling coat, took off his spectacles and laid them on a side table, and curled up on the rug in the center of the living room, laying his head in his grandmother's lap. He gently stroked his hair. "Sleep now," she said. "Sleep." Soon he was snoring. After a little while the grandmother was too. Hansel sat there in the dark closet, listening to them snore. Suddenly he realized this was his chance. Hadn't the old man said that it only required 3 golden hairs from the devil's head to escape this place? Carefully opened the door of the closet and tiptoed over where the devil was sleeping. Ever so gingerly, Hansel reached out and took a golden hair from the devil's head. "That's what he's going to take, right? Right? Wrong? Are you crazy? the devil would wake up immediately, and then it would be all over for Hansel forever and ever and ever. I hope that's not what you thought Hansel was going to do. If you did, good luck if you ever end up in hell. Hansel reached out and took the devil's spectacles from the side table, retreating them to the closet, and closed the door again, and then he waited there all night. The next morning the devil rose and rated himself for another day of soul collecting. His grandmother made him a breakfast of human fingernails, scrambled, of course, and packed up his lunch in a bag. But before he left, the devil announced that he could not find his glasses. He was furious, for he could barely see without them. "I hardly recognize you, grandmother," he shouted. "Where in hell did I put them?" Before he left, the devil announced that he could not find his glasses. He was furious, for he could barely see without them. "I hardly recognize you, grandmother," he shouted. "Where in hell did I put them?" "Devil knows," his grandmother said. "No, he doesn't," he shouted. Eventually he stormed out of the house without his glasses, grumbling about telling one sinner from another and wasting a perfectly good day of damnation. After he was gone, the grandmother went upstairs. Hansel ever so carefully opened the door to the closet. He perched up the stairs. The grandmother was carrying things to the attic. Hansel watched her carry an armload of objects up the stairs, including a crown with a head still attached to it and something that looked like a squid, and come back down empty-handed. She did it again, this time carrying 2 giant feet. When she came back down, she was sweating with heat and strain. She itched her gray hair and then took it off. Hansel grimaced at the scabby, bald head underneath. She disappeared into a room and reemerged without her hair at all, carrying inside a mesmerized child with a lollipop in his nose. As she turned for the attic, Hansel took a deep breath and he followed her up. Each of his steps on the stairs made a loud creak, causing him to wince and suck in his breath. But the devil's grandmother was singing again, and she could not hear a thing. When she disappeared through the door of the attic, Hansel hurried up after her. She was half buried in boxes and strange objects when he quietly shut the door behind her. To his amazement, relief, and glee, there was a key in the attic door. He turned it in the lock and went back downstairs. Hansel soon heard frantic banging on the attic door. Then his grandmother began shouting for help, but no one was around to hear it. After a lot of banging and shouting, the grandmother seemed to resign herself to a day in the attic, and she quieted down. Now Hansel made his way into her bedroom. On the dresser before an obscene mirror stood a wig stand with the grandmother's gray wig on it. Around it was her makeup, thick black lipstick that looked like a petrified oil slick, and blush that looked like dried, powdered blood, and fake eyelashes that looked like nowhere the leg of flies. In her closet were her dresses. Hansel closed the door in her room. He came out an hour later, dressed from head to toe like the devil's grandmother. He wore a billowing black dress, makeup all over his face. He had put it on the best he could, which wasn't very well, and her gray wig. He skipped the eyelashes. In the kitchen, Hansel took what looked like to be a pot of human fingers out of an icebox. He put the pot on the stove and turned on the heat. "Leftovers," he said to himself. Then he set the table with forks and knives made of human bone and teeth, and he waited for the devil to get home. When he heard the devil's footsteps trudging up to the door, Hansel began to scream at the top of his lungs. The door opened and the devil came in. "Damn it, godmother, can you stop your infernal singing for one bloody instant?" "Someone's in a bad mood today," Hansel said in his best grandmother's voice. "Without my blasted glasses, there isn't a point looking for sinners. I made a complete fool of myself," the devil said sullenly. "Oh, I'm sure you didn't, dear," Hansel said, and then he began to ladle the fingers on the devil's plate. "Your voice sounds strange today, grandmother," the devil said. "Are you well?" A cold sweat broke out all over Hansel's skin. "Of course, dear," he said, "just a little sniffle," and he sniffled twice. The devil sat down on the table, but immediately turned on Hansel. "I tell you, it stinks of human flesh in here. It's disgusting." But Hansel remembered what the grandmother had said the day before. "Of course it does. What do you think we're having for dinner?" The devil took one bite of his dinner and spit it out. "This is revolting. What is it?" "Leftovers," Hansel said nervously. "Ugh, I hate leftovers." The devil stood up and stomped into the living room and plopped down on the couch. "What a horrible day," he shouted. Hansel took a deep breath and then slowly walked into the living room. "Here, dear," he said, "let me stroke your hair. Everything will be better in the morning." And Hansel sat down in the middle of the living room rug, just as the devil's grandmother had done. The devil grumbled and laid his head in Hansel's lap. "Grandmother, why are you shaking?" he asked. "The better to rock you in my sleep, my dear," Hansel said, and he tried to prevent his teeth from chattering too. Grandmother, will you sing to me? The devil asked. His eyes fluttered closed. Certainly, my dear, Hansel said. He swallowed hard, and then he began to scream at the very top of his lungs. Grandmother, what a beautiful voice you have, the devil said. The better to sing you to sleep, my dear, Hansel replied. Can you stroke my hair? The devil said. With trembling hands, Hansel began to stroke his hair. Grandmother, what delicate fingers you have, the devil said. Shh, Hansel whispered. Sleep, my dear. And the devil slept. As soon as the devil's breathing was nice and even, Hansel took one of Devil's golden hairs between two of his fingers, and trying not to wake him, plucked it out. Tar and pitch! Screamed the devil, sitting up. Why did you do that? Hansel's heart jumped in his mouth, but he said as calmly, I'm sorry, I fell asleep and I had a bad dream. I must have grabbed hold of your hair. The devil settled himself back in Hansel's lap. I love bad dreams, he said. What was it? Hansel swallowed. I dreamed that there was a city with a fountain of wine, but that it flowed no longer, and all of the people were sad. Aha! Those old fools, said the devil. I placed a frog right under the fountain. That's what's stopping up all the wine. All they've got to do is kill it, but they don't want that, of course. He chuckled at the unhappiness he had caused and fell back to sleep. As soon as the devil's breathing was nice and even again, Hansel took another gold hair between his fingers and plucked it out. Sulphur and brimstone! Screamed the devil, sitting up. Why did you do that? I'm sorry, Hansel said. I fell asleep and had a bad dream again. I must have grabbed hold of your hair. The devil settled himself back in Hansel's lap. Well, he said, what was it this time? This time I dreamed that there was a city with a tree that gave no golden apples, but the tree was dying and it would give apples no more, and all the people were sad. Aha! Those fools, said the devil. I placed a mouse under the ground at the root of the tree. It is nibbling at the roots and killing it. If they just took the mouse out and did away with it, the tree would produce golden apples again. But they don't know that, of course. He chuckled at the misery, and he had caused and closed his eyes again. Again, Hansel waited until the devil's breathing was nice and even, and the third time he plucked out a golden hair. Father, above me and below, screamed the devil, sitting up. Don't tell me you had another bad dream. Yes, I am so sorry, Hansel said. The devil settled himself back in Hansel's lap. I'm getting sick of this, he said. Tell me the dream, but if you pull my hair again, I'll pull you out there with the sinners. I dreamed that there was a poor ferryman, Hansel said, who had been in his boat for 7 years and couldn't leave, no matter how hard he tried. Aha, that fool, said the devil. All he has to do is hand his paddle off to someone else, and he'll be free, and they'll be stuck there for the rest of time. But he doesn't know that, of course. He chuckled at the agony he had caused, and said, Now don't wake me again, or you'll be sorry. He was just settled into a nice, peaceful sleep, with Hansel holding 3 golden hairs in his hands and shaking like a leaf. When a scream pierced the house, the devil sat up. What in the hell? What was that? He shouted. Sounds like someone is in the attic, Hansel said. Has one of the sinners escaped? We'll soon find out, the devil cried, and he leaped to his feet and ran up the stairs. As soon as he was out of sight, Hansel jumped up, threw the wig off and dress off, and banged out of the doorhouse. He turned for the doors of hell and broke into a run, gripping the 3 golden hairs tightly. After a while, he glanced briefly over his shoulder. To his surprise, he discovered that the fire and the pits of demons with pitchforks had disappeared. All he saw now were poor sinners writhing on the floor of a great cave, screaming in sorrow and remorse for all the pain they had caused. Holding the 3 golden hairs, he knew that he was seeing the truth, hell as it really was. He arrived at the great black doors. As he laid his hands on them, they swung open and stood blinking in the daylight. The old man, who had been sitting on the ground just outside all this time, leaped to his feet. You're out, he cried. Hallelujah! And then he said, Why are you wearing makeup? But just at that moment, a terrible cry echoed from the deep depths of hell, an unmistakable, blood-chilling, hair-raising, stomach-turning cry of the devil. Run, Hansel cried, and they did. They sprinted over the dusty ground away from the black doors of hell. Glancing over the shoulder, Hansel saw the furious devil galloping across the turf behind them. For you see, outside of the hell, the devil has no power over those who are already not damned, and so he had to chase them on foot. Still, he was faster than the young boy and the old man, and he wasn't far behind them when they arrived at the river. They jumped into the ferryman's boat and shoved it off from shore. Did you discover how to free me? The ferryman said. I did, Hansel replied, but take us across first. Look, the devil's after us. So the ferryman rowed with all his might. When Hansel and the old man got out of the boat, Hansel told the ferryman what to do. The ferryman returned to the other shore where the devil was waiting impatiently. After those 2 now, the devil commanded, hopping in. So the ferryman started off, but he paddled as slowly as he possibly could. "Hurry!" screamed the devil. "They're getting away!" The ferryman said, "I can't go any faster. The current's too strong for me." "Oh, to hell with that!" the devil cried, and grabbed the paddle from the ferryman's hands. He paddled them across the river in a blink of an eye. But when they reached the other shore, the ferryman hopped out, and the devil found that he was stuck fast. He bellowed and hollered and screamed and cried, but no amount of protest would set him free. The ferryman then set about making a little sign with some clay and piece of slate to explain the situation to all who came by, so that no one will accidentally free the devil. He adorned it with flowers and smiling angels. The devil fumed, but he was stuck in that boat for many years to come. The old man laughed and laughed to see the devil in the little ferry boat struggling to get out, and Hansel laughed too, and wiped the grandmother's makeup from his face. And they began to walk back toward the walled cities to tell the people how to break the devil's curses. But after walking just a way, the old man stumbled. Hansel caught him, and they began to walk again. But a little while he stumbled a second time, and this time he fell to the ground. Hansel tried to help him to his feet, but the old man was breathing hard. "Let me lie here a moment," he said. The race with the devil had taken its toll on his ancient body. So Hansel sat beside the man, and because the old man asked him to, and told him all about this time in hell, and what he had done to escape. The old man laughed when Hansel told him of dressing up like the devil's grandmother, and laughed some more when Hansel described singing the devil to sleep. Soon as the old man's laughter became a fit of coughing, he put his head back in the grass and tried to breathe calmly. After a while, he took Hansel's hand. "I cannot go any further," he said, making the words was an effort for him. "Stay beside me, Hansel. Don't run from me now." "Why would I run from you?" Hansel asked. "You ran from your parents because of me," the old man said. Hansel didn't know what he was talking about. "I ran away because my father cut off my head," he said. "And how did you know I ran away?" "Who told him to cut off your head?" The old man's voice was weak. Hansel began. He stopped. He gazed at the man's ancient, wrinkled face. Then, after a moment, he said, "You did." "I did," said faithful Johannes. He tried to raise himself to sit, but his face twisted with pain, and he gave up. "I've been seeking you and your sister all these years. Now I found you, and I'm dying." They sat there, the old man and the young boy, on a patch of grass by the side of the road. The clouds passed overhead, and the late autumn sun dipped low in the western sky, and the crickets took up their song. And then, because he thought about it every morning when he woke up, and every evening when he lay down, Hansel said, "Tell me about my parents." Johannes smiled sadly. "They cursed themselves, Hansel, for what they did to you too. They were foolish. Foolish," he coughed angrily. "They see their foolishness now. And so do I. Faithfulness is important. Understanding is important. But nothing is as precious as children. Nothing." The cricket song enveloped them once again. A flock of swallows swooped overhead, their little brown bodies framed by the pink sky. Hansel thought of the 7 brothers. "I don't want to go home," he said. "Don't make me." He suddenly felt like a very little child again. "I understand," Johannes said. "No, you don't." Johannes sighed. "Hansel, I do." And then he began to tell the boy a story. It started with a dying king and a young prince and a beautiful princess who lived across the sea. The prince became a king, and he convinced the beautiful princess to be his wife. Johannes laughed at the whole stealing thing, for his strength was low, and besides, it was pretty embarrassing. Then he told of 3 ravens and 3 posses, and a faithful servant who risked his very life. "I loved this young king and his bride," Johannes said, "and I thought perhaps that they would keep their faith with me, that they would understand." And then he told Hansel of the chestnut stallion and the golden dress and the wedding dance, and of carrying the new queen to his highest turnip, and of what he did there and the peri of all the rest. Hansel stared at the grass of the shadows as the shadows grew, and the sky turned pale blue to orange and pink. Locusts hummed. "Can you ever forgive them?" Hansel asked softly. "I did better than forgive them," Johannes said. "I understood them." "I understand too, but—" "Not in the new sense of word," Johannes interrupted. "In the old sense, the ancient sense, I understood." He paused and collected his breath. "I planted my feet beneath them, and took upon my shoulders their burden, their choice, their mistake, and their pain. Yes, I understood them, but I also understood them. In the last moment, before I turned to stone, your parents understood what I had done for them. but only that terrible day when they cut off your heads. Did they understand me. Only that day they were willing to stand beneath me and take on my burden. It was that brought me back to life. So I understand you, Hansel, and I understand you, but that's unfortunately isn't good enough. It's not from me that you need to understanding. Suddenly, a terrible fit of coughing took the ancient man. He doubled up, and Hansel held him by the shoulders. After a while, he was able to lie back down. There was blood on his lips and on his face. Listen to me now, Hansel, listen well. Johan's voice was low and hard to hear. Hansel put his head right up by Johan's mouth, much as Johan had done for Hansel's grandfather many years before. There is an evil thing, Johan said, an evil thing in the kingdom. Because of their weakness and their sadness, a dragon has come to the kingdom of Grimm. Hansel tried to sit up, but the old man's grip was iron as sleeve. Listen to me. The dragon has taken possession of one of the people. It lives inside him, like a disease. Who? But Johan's motioned for him to be quiet. Speaking was now great a struggle. You must kill it, you and Gretel. Why us? Because there is a time when a kingdom needs its children, Johan said. Because there is a time when a kingdom needs its children, Johan said. Hansel sat quietly under the pink and purpling sky. He thought of the kingdom and his parents, and of the years that had passed. He thought of the pain he left, the heavy burden of pain. He thought of what Johan had said about the understanding. We'll go to them, Hansel said. I'll find Gretel. We will save our parents and their kingdom. The old man smiled. He reached out and took Hansel's hand. They sat together as the light faded, and the sky went from blue to deep purple to black. Hansel stared up at the stars as they winked into being 1, 2, 3, 4. He turned back to Johan's. The old man's eyes stared upward, but he was not seeing. Hansel waved as a hand before his face and then touched his neck. Johan's was dead. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, hit the notifications button, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video. Keep in touch, because I'm going to read chapter 6. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.